Live from Studio A in PressCorps World Headquarters, this is Zero Dark PressCorps. It's a live, community-based call-in show, fielding your thoughts on and tales from the Foxhole War. So join the Discord right now through the link below, sign in through the call queue text channel, and hop in the voice lounge for a chance to share your story. Tonight's developer guest, lead developer, Mark Foot. Community manager, KrazyFlynChicken. And now, your host, 13-time winner of the Geoffrey Jennings Award for Excellence in Journalism, Geoffrey Jennings.
Hello, welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps. I'm Geoffrey Jennings, and here we are in the post-61st conflict and the currently underway 62nd conflict of the Foxhole War. Slight correction there from the intro. I put in the wrong video, but it's actually only KFC joining us tonight, but not just only, because we got the community manager, as always, joining us. KFC, thank you so much for taking the time to stop by. How are you doing?
Pretty good. It's been a while since I've been on one of these.
Yeah, I know. I think it was Mark was carrying the weight there for a long while, carrying the weight of the entire community on his shoulders alone. No, not quite.
No kidding.
Yeah, but yeah, it's been a crazy couple of months, but I'm hoping to get back into the swing of things, hopefully by the end of this week, but I'm sure that's not going to happen. A couple of things before we get started in earnest with our calls. Actually, with our dev questions, first of all, I have to ask a couple of questions right off the bat, get my 2 cents in. But I do want to give a quick shout out to members of the PressCorps and our guest contributors who liked, I should open the call queue, shouldn't I? Here we go. And there it is. But we should give a shout out to our contributors who stopped by and give a little bit of something to our newswire. I actually just released, about half an hour before the show started, the collection of 61 of the newswire releases from the 61st conflict. Smaller set than what we had from, say, War 59, but that's quite all right. I've been a little tricky trying to get some reporting done on the field, with school and work currently underway in earnest for everyone. But I just want to give a shout out to all those, particularly Emma, who's been great getting her. She got her uniform actually, so make sure you stop by, and if you see someone in a press uniform running around, stop by and wave hello to Emma. She's our photographer, our resident photographer, and she's getting some great shots, as you can see there. I don't know if I can emphasize that, but on the screen. But regardless, it is she's doing some great work, and I cannot wait to see more from her, as with all of our other contributors. But as I said, I'd like to start off with a couple of dev questions, and we'll see how many we can get through. I think I've got 2 here for you at least. I think we can get 2 in. But Max, tell me, ever since trenches were implemented, there has been heated disagreements on how they are used, not just on forums, but in the field as well. Many times these disagreements devolve into bad experiences and even friendly fire incidents where someone's just trying to hack away on a shovel thinking they're doing something good because, hey, it's doing something, but and so people like to roll up and be, hey, that's not a good idea, and then they keep shoveling, and it gets a little ugly. So one of the most common points of contention revolving around trench use, particularly tier 1 trench use, is how easily they can be captured by the enemy and used against your side. What can be done? Well, first of all, do you agree with this assessment? And second, what can be done? If so, what can be done in the design of the basic trench to alleviate this? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with that assessment at all. But to give you guys an idea of like where our design philosophy comes from is typically when we implement something new, in this case trenches, we always go with the most basic form. In terms of like what you see is what you get. That's always been one of the core philosophies of Foxhole. So in this case, we didn't want to over we didn't want to overthink it. We didn't want to add too many things to a system that might just work out of the box. So we added it in exactly how you might see it in reality. Is you dig a hole in the ground and then you fight from it. And our hope was to see battle lines of the players getting into the trenches and engaging people, and then sort of like a no man's land forming. But obviously that doesn't happen for all sorts of reasons that we theorized when we were first developing it, and it's not a total surprise that it's being used the way that it is. But that being said, we planned a lot more in the construct or in the for the building and engineering update that we just never got around to. That's not to say that it's not coming. It's just we just need to come. We need to find the time in the schedule to implement. And believe me, trenches are still one of those many things that the team is still super excited to work on. We've just the other day, actually, I was talking in FOD. We were looking at for ideas for building suggestions, ideas that people have for what you'd like to see the bunker system sort of evolve into.
Right.
And we're still looking out for those.
Yeah, I mean, with the trenches, it's funny. It's one of those things that you have to kind of fit into Foxhole because Foxhole is, I think it's safe to assume, one of its missions is to simulate war, that feeling of war, as much as possible. But you kind of have to adjust it for video game logic, and one of those is just self-preservation, right? In Foxhole, material and land matters way more than manpower, and you make some snide political remarks about that also being true in real life. But for the most part, in real life, manpower is what matters the most compared to, like they always say, a tank crew is always more important than an actual tank. No matter how many millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars you put into a tank, in real life, nothing matters more than the tank crew and making sure they're safe and they can get out and etc. Not so much in Foxhole, where trenches. So trenches is all about self-preservation, but how do you do that? How do you fit that concept into Foxhole, where self-preservation really kind of doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, particularly compared to real life? I have on the screen now, or at least I thought I did. At the screen now, and actually I'll send this to you via message. Nope, I thought I could. But regardless, it's a step trench. I think you've already seen this suggestion. It's a forward trench, if you know what I'm talking about, which is kind of a one-way kind of way of looking at it. Has this been considered at all, or anything similar? See if I can get it to you via message. But I have this on the screen now, and it essentially allows one side to fire one way, and then prevents the other side from firing the other way, essentially making them a one-way trench, if you know what I'm talking about. And this is not the first time. This has been suggested on numerous occasions, but I have the suggestion from CE Doramal.
Yep, I'm not going to rule it out. It's definitely in our list of design notes. One of those principal things that we get asked about a lot. But I want to set expectations here that one of the challenges for this, for the scheduling is, well, the whole team has been focused, like laser focused on 1.0 release. And it's getting to that point in our development where we have to start picking and choosing the things we want, as opposed to like looking at absolutely everything, and then just sort of hoping we can find the time for it. Step trenches seems like one of those no-brainers. It seems super simple. Like how hard could this be? The sad reality is that the way that the trench system is set up now, it's actually extremely intensive. Just recently we added that corner piece to the bunkers that you guys saw. That, like, you have to bear in mind that when we add a single piece like that, we need to implement the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 variants, and then we need to add the damage state for tier 1, the light damage state at tier 1, the light damage state at tier 2, and then the heavy damage states for all three. We're talking already like 9 different models that for this one structure. And when you're looking at something like a step trench, this is the same problem. We have to do damage states, we have to do tiers, and the real question is this something that we feel like is going to be worth our effort, or is the time going to be spent better elsewhere? I don't have the answer for you. That's a legitimate question for Mark, but that's exactly the sort of thing that he's been like head down working on these last couple of weeks, is trying to decide exactly what pieces are coming and where they fit into the puzzle before 1.0. With one final note that 1.0 is not the end. We just have to pick and choose to get to 1.0, and then after 1.0 we have a number of updates that we'd really like to get to that will continue to develop the game regardless.
So then that begs the question, and I'm kind of throwing this curveball at you, but the whole show is just curveballs at you guys. But then what I see. How do I approach this? Is what is the need for 1.0 then? I think I've asked this before on numerous occasions, but again, as we get closer, it just kind of gets more pressing. What is the need for 1.0? Why do we need to hit that checkpoint? Considering you guys have already been doing this for 3 years.
I don't feel like it's even really that big of a milestone. I think it's more like holding ourselves accountable. It's like it's really not gonna to those of you who've been with us for the 3 or 4 years that we've been in development, like it's not gonna feel much more than just a major update with some really cool stuff that obviously we're gonna have to push out to get some press coverage. So we're hopefully.
So then why call it 1.0 at all?
We eventually have to leave early access, right?
Is that is that necessitated by Steam?
No, not at all. It's more necessitated by us. It's more like what we have to make a decision for ourselves. We have to do a lot of soul searching to discover exactly what we feel is a completed game. I mean, a lot of people could argue now that the game is complete and that it like obviously we need to fix in some bugs and work on some polish, but like it's a full game. But we don't feel that way yet. We still feel like it needs some work, and we have to decide for ourselves exactly what we think it is that needs to be done before we can call it complete. But again, with that big caveat that even when it is quote unquote complete, there's still a lot more that we want to add on top of it. The big one that I keep harping on and on about on FOD is I really, really, really want a naval update. I've almost been guaranteed that there's no naval update coming before 1.0. He's like basically pre-crossed that one off. But that's one of those big updates that I'm really hoping is going to come soon after 1.0.
I see. Well, we'll just have to see what the rest of the team as a whole comes to a decision on what 1.0 really looks like and where those priorities lay. Wrapping up the pressure for sure for a whole year. Hope you guys can be all right with it. So then I guess the actual second question I had is how much of the Discord suggestions channel and subreddit do the developers see? And I've asked that before, and it's safe to say pretty much all of it, minus maybe when things get spam crazy, but for the most part, pretty much everything. So then I guess the actual question is why aren't they commented more often from the developers? So like for instance, why isn't every single subreddit suggestion commented on by the developers, even just like a phrase or a sentence?
Yeah, like you said, I think we read just about everything that passes through the subreddit. Myself especially, I have a literal feed that goes through my Discord. This is a really complex issue that I think is really hard to understand until you're sitting in our shoes. Is that commenting is more than just the words we say. Just the act of commenting alone sends messages. We have to be very careful about what we say and to who and to what the context is about. And a lot of the times we have to also be very careful that there are some actors out there who have a vested interest in just sort of baiting us into arguments that we're not particularly fond of. And so we try to keep our best, try to keep our wits about us to answer the questions that we feel are genuine, to answer the suggestions that we feel are good, and where possible, try to highlight them. We try to bring them onto the dev stream, and we try our best to comment on them where possible. But I would say that 90% of the time we've read the suggestion, we either agree or disagree with it, and then can't say anything about it for fear of exacerbating an issue that might be underlying. Exactly. I think a really good example would be there was recently a suggestion about smoke grenades and satchel charges. This is one that has been circulating inside the team for a while. We've been worried about it. Players, basically one-man player teams going around using smoke and satchel charges to blow up backline towns and destroying things. This is something we really would love to comment on, but I think you all can understand why we can't really talk about it. It's something we don't want to highlight. We don't really want more people doing it. And secondly, we need to sort of figure out what the solution is and where the time and the schedule is for that. And just commenting on the post alone, I think, sort of brings it to a limelight that we don't really want on it.
Not even like it's like hey, it's been noted, it's being worked on. But then, I guess by that logic, you're kind of promising it, right?
Exactly right. And then the next thing you know, we're getting messaged 3 weeks later after the latest update saying, "Hey, why didn't you address this? You said you would in this update or in this comment." And that's not something we don't want to make liars of ourselves. So
I can attest to this as well, is that whenever you address something, even just acknowledging it like, hey, that might be a good idea, for whatever reason, that gets translated into this is coming in the next update, or this is coming in 3 weeks, like hardcore, 100% confirmed, just through the game of telephone, just through Discord DMs and whatever. Just personally for my things, people are like, "Hey, weren't you doing this interview with so and so?" It's like I never agreed to that. I was like, they said, "Hey, that would be cool if I could find the time to do that," and then that turns into a whole incident. I won't get into that, but yeah, these I can relate. But in any case, KFC, thank you so much for answering my questions, and now come the curveballs. Full disclosure, as always, that the questions I ask at the beginning are shared with with the devs first before I ask them, just so we can get the clearest answer. But for all these calls, absolutely not. Lek, welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps. How you doing?
Hey, Geoffrey. How you doing?
I'm doing quite all right. Just hoping to get my life back in order so I can do more PressCorps things, but not guaranteed. But anyway, what'd you have for us here?
I actually have a little bit of a heavier thing
Okay.
today. Hopefully not too heavy. I don't want to,
Sure.
hog up all the time. I actually did make a notepad document. I'll probably send crazy after this because everything I say, it'll be hard to remember all of it, right?
Mhm.
Because I've got two main points I want to hit on though are balance concern. Like obviously, this is a lot of people are probably gonna talk about like stuff that happened in the last war, and people are gonna say like shit like people are already going to be going people already were going for lengths to say why stuff was balanced or unbalanced, right? And everyone's had their own little take on the matter, and I just want to kind of get like my sort of
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
take
go
out
for
there
it.
kind of thing, right? So the two main points that people will often like leap to, well, at least the one main point that people will often say, as far as like why stuff, why people like why wardens have been winning or something like that, is like vehicle balance. And I do want to touch on vehicle balance, but the first thing I want to talk about, most importantly, like I saw a couple people bring this up as a point, which was like population balancing, right? So there have always been population balancing measures in the game. It used to be like the team got a tech boost if you had less population, which was kind of counterintuitive because it made people log off until late war and then swingy comeback shit, which wasn't really enjoyable to be on the receiving end of that. To just have suddenly the enemy team have like 200 people log in and then suddenly they have tanks out like a day earlier.
Mhm.
But like population's always been an issue, and two things I want to hit on are that what like the population balancing measures currently aren't really enough to handle the problem. I don't really have a solution to what you could do so as far as making it so that the team with less players has an even chance. And frankly, I don't think the solution is as easy as just like creating something to give the team with less players
Can
like
I can,
even ground.
can I contend you on that even basic premise is that should should the team with lower population be given any boost whatsoever even? Maybe that's approaching it from a different. Maybe we need to even go more fundamental. So, for instance,
This is the reason why I was saying like the basic fact that some people will say it's a fair point, and I don't exactly disagree with it. I my main point though is that it's obviously frustrating to just lose because you have less players, not because your players are trying less, right? Like
right.
so my main point is that Foxhole suffers from, everyone knows it. If you're not playing on an update war, sometimes crazy you guys just have the map is way too fucking big and doesn't have enough players to support it. And like beyond that, there's a reason that most of the wars that are not update wars go down to like, it used to be worse. It used to be down to like 200, like 100 maybe. It's gotten better since like a really bad spot, but it's still like only like 200, 300, maybe 400, and that on a full map is not enough to like deal with everything, and it becomes very annoying to be the team that has less players, because when you have less players overall, like individual players, like the player numbers matter a lot more, because it's the percentages and the differences there become that much bigger, right? And ultimately, it's kind of like a thing of in my opinion, the only way that the population issues would be solved, even if there's still a discrepancy about how many like players play on each side total, the best way to fix it would be to have it so that neither side ever suffers from pop and there's always a queue to play the game, right? Obviously that would be annoying in some respects, like you don't like not people don't want to have to sit through queues, but like in my opinion it's the only way to make population not a balancing concern. But the thing a bit about that is like, how do you get players to play during the wars that aren't update wars, right? And Foxhole suffers from a lot of like player retention issues, and mostly because
Not done.
let's be honest, game lacks some essential features. Would you disagree? Either
That
of
the
you?
game lacks some essential features.
Yeah, I actually, this is why I have a notepad document, because I have a couple just general points like proper clan integration, like a personal or a communal progression system, a tutorial of any form other than what's the tutorial in game right now is lacking, to say the least. Some kind of like into the action button to instantly join like a squad, or as well as like instantly deploy to their location on the map without having to fuss about with, okay, I'm going to join this
So
squad
like
randomly and all that jazz.
I think just to kind of center ourselves around something here, ground ourselves on something.
Yeah.
I think you're just trying to say that there are many many factors as to why the Colonials appear to be on a losing streak. Not appear to be; they are on a losing streak, right?
This isn't
And
really a point about like Colonials are on a losing streak or anything like that. It's more just a thing of why the game suffers from
oh, okay.
balance
So
and why
you
that
started off with that.
impacts. Oh no, because this does impact balancing, and it's just been
Mhm.
more apparent on the like for Colonials recently, though. Like Wardens, like historically, have always had a slight edge as far as population, if I recall. There
I
was
can't
the
confirm
one
that. KFC,
census
I don't know
like
if KFC can.
there was a one census back in June. But almost every war that's won has to do like the team that wins almost always has more population by like a significant amount. Except like the only exception to that is typically update wars.
Is that
Um,
over the
but
course of
like
the whole war, or is that towards the end?
I'm talking like as in terms of like averages,
Okay.
that what you just hit on a point that I'll touch on later regarding like balance wise, but
Mhm.
for other concerns, but like the main thing I want to hit on with all the like stuff that could be added to Foxhole for better player retention is that I hope to God you guys add some of these like basic player retention stuff over like the next coming months leading up to 1.0, because 1.0 can't just be like a magic bullet where it's like it's suddenly, oh, we're going to add all this player retention stuff, because the thing is that it's not just like unless even if you like take like two updates worth of time developing 1.0 and don't put out anything between them and add all the player retention features, they're not going to necessarily be honed leading up to that, which is why you'd want to release like them in a trickle, so to speak, and like see how effective certain features are. Maybe they need to be tuned up or
So
like
so then
stuff like that.
so then it sounds like you just want to have like a list of not a list of grievances, but like a list of things you want to hit before 1.0. You want to go through that list right now?
No. I already went through most of it.
Oh, okay.
The only other thing I didn't say was like a proper squad system. But like general, I gave us some examples. There's other examples I couldn't think of. But my main point about that is that the devs need to work on a list of like player retention features leading up to 1.0. It can't just be all at 1.0, or the game will like or it won't be properly tested, stuff won't be properly polished in time for 1.0. Like certain things like tutorial that could definitely wait till 1.0 itself.
It
But
kind of has to, because if you work on the tutorial, you kind of have to work on it.
Yeah, when all the features are finally added, like that's the sort of polish on top. But it's like certain stuff that's been neglected and reworked so many times, but still hasn't really gotten better, is like the squad system and like a clan integration and all that jazz. Like those features should come before 1.0, so that way they can be properly, like all the little bits and bobs are there, all the bugs are fixed, all the polish is done, because trying to like squeeze all of that into one like silver bullet type update will inevitably, in my opinion, uh, result in some issues where it's like so much new stuff that it's difficult to sort of like ease into like a better, like this kind of stuff. It doesn't work as an overnight thing. It works where you build up to it, right? And that's mostly what I want to say in terms of like population balancing issues.
So then KFC, I mean, that's a good point, is that once you hit 1.0, would it be still acceptable for Foxhole to have these peaks around the updates, and then within just a couple of weeks have it drop down to 600, 400, as low as 200 in between the big updates? So while we're in early access, that's perfectly fine. That's the benefit of being early access, of not being 1.0, is that you can get away with things because you're not a full product. Once you hit 1.0, once you hit that coveted number, and it is a big number, it is, you have to release a full game. You have to release a full product. How does Foxhole account for these low population periods? What are the ways to tackle that? Do you think? Do you recognize the question there? I mean, obviously you do, but you can hear me. He's avoiding the question. No, I'm kidding.
Sorry, I think I disconnected there.
Yeah, I think I heard you trying to talk there. Did you hear my question before that? It's not honest.
I heard the first half. So you were talking about like whether or not we expect like the peaks and troughs after 1.0.
Yeah, is for 1.0. Once you hit 1.0, would it be acceptable for Foxhole to hit those peaks and valleys? At the very least, obviously it'll have peaks and valleys, no doubt. But like the peaks and valleys that we're seeing, that Foxhole has always seen. So peaks of 2,000 players, awesome, great, fun. 3,000, whatever the actual high was. But then the valleys of 600, 400, 200. And he's kind of to adjust the war maps artificially. I guess we'll start with that. Do you think that's acceptable for Foxhole to still be like that?
I think it's improving. I mean, a year ago we just sort of wrote it off as an inevitability, and there was nothing we could do about it. But actually, this most recent update was surprising to us in terms of the longevity. Usually, after these major updates, we see a major population drop off after about 3 weeks. It's usually accompanied by a deluge of criticism and Steam review bombs. But then
as is tradition.
But as is tradition. But this time around, it's actually been a lot more calm. Like not just in terms of the feedback we've been getting, but also like the population dip has been significantly reduced. We're not sure. We're still not entirely sure if that was anything we did or if it's sort of like a result of external issues like with COVID. But we're actually pretty optimistic that we're hopeful that we're going to see fewer troughs, or at least shallower troughs than we have been. In at the very, like, I think just this most recent war, not this one that just started, but the one before, we started with over 1,000 players, and this is already the second or third war after the update, and that's insane. Usually we're down below 600 people after the second war. So the numbers have definitely evened out.
So you're contending that Foxhole is kind of on the path to slowly fixing that problem, not just by itself, obviously through these updates, but you're contending that it's kind of just getting better naturally as the game evolves.
We're hopeful. I'm not going to say with any degree of certainty, but we are hopeful.
Right.
I would like to respond to that quickly before going on to like a short stint into my other topic. Hopefully, effectively, what I'd say to that is that I will give you guys credit. It has the troughs have been shallower than than in the past. Like in the past, as I'll just say right now, the Dark Ages, like update 26 and past that for a while. For a long while, it was like 200. Fuck, there was one war where it literally dipped below 100. And that like not as an average, but like the war's average was like 180, but like it dipped below 100 repeatedly. Like it's definitely gotten better than it was. My main point is that I'm weary that it doesn't get to where it needs to be by 1.0, because aside from like a couple of small quality of life or touch-ups into essential player retention features, it's really felt like over the past like year or so, some of those features have been sorely neglected. Not to say that there hasn't been other stuff that has needed work, namely logi building and other stuff, which still do need work, but it feels like that area of the game has been neglected for a while. And that's mostly what I'll say on that. But to lead into my second point, you mentioned earlier, Geoffrey, what was it you mentioned that I had said that leads into it? Because I'm not remembering.
I don't remember either. You're the one with the notepad. I gotta say, this is probably gonna have to be your last point because you do need to get under other callers.
It's a short point I want to make about vehicle asymmetry. I think it was it was regarding like population at certain points of wars, right? It's effectively that my point is effectively that population matters a lot more towards the end of the wars, just like tech matters a lot more in the later in the wars, because something that has been true of Foxhole for the longest time is that wars end in the late game. Unless there is a massive population imbalance, wars always end in the late game. And one of the criticisms that's been levied against like the current vehicle asymmetry is that the current method, you guys have said that Colonials are both the artillery faction, but it also seems to be balanced as if Colonials are more of an early game power spike faction, which relative to like the overall balance of the game doesn't really work, because late game is where you win wars. And regarding artillery is often a lot harder to use by the masses, and thus, has less impact than, say, just powerful tanks. Effectively, I don't have a point about any specific vehicles, though I'm guessing people will have want to talk about specific vehicles as notable exceptions to the power curve of the tech tree. I just want to sort of leave off on a note that I hope you guys take a look at what vehicles spike in power, what stages of the war, and while continuing asymmetry, because I admit I do enjoy the asymmetry, I hope you guys take a pass on the balancing of certain vehicles and try to balance both factions to be about as strong in the early game and late game, even with different varieties of tools and assets at their fingertips, so to speak.
Absolutely. Now I got a question for you, Lek.
Yeah.
You got any crazy rocket plays coming this war? Now the rockets are back in the game.
It's funny because I was completely not expecting that. Probably no. I'm probably going to be sitting this war out. I'm busy with my own stuff. I'm testing Anvil, as you might know, but you weren't there for that. You weren't there for the glorious.
No, I saw some of your stream.
Yeah. Oh, you did? Yeah, you saw Merchant Town then, right?
Yep.
Hell yeah. Yep. That shit was so much fun though. But probably not going to be doing rocket stuff. I'll probably assist if clans want help with rocket stuff and the ops. But I'm probably going to be sitting out for a couple wars until the next update, because population is fucked at the moment, and I don't really feel like losing.
Yeah.
As much as I don't really care about the Foxhole to me isn't about winning or losing, but admittedly, it's not really fun to play in wars where you're at a significant disadvantage. So
I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite. I'm like, this is awesome. Desperate defenses or just hopeless offensives. freaking great, because then it's like you just when you start making progress, if you start making progress, even it's like a kick to your rear end, which is just the least.
Yeah,
I
but
can say.
the problem with those is that it either has to be it has to be fun because everyone is like role playing and like doing some other shit. Like when it's competitive, and Foxhole undoubtedly gets competitive for a lot of people, it's not really as fun. Like I play the game mostly for fun, but I do have a competitive streak to me, and that's just like eh. Desperate defenses can be fun though. Like
All right,
it depends on context, but yeah, thank you for the talk. Thank you for
thank you. I
heeding
always
my
know.
words.
I always know we could sit here for 2 hours at least with just you alone. We do have to get into other callers. Lek, thank you so much for your
Yep.
time. Appreciate it.
Sorry if I took too long.
No,
Have a
no,
good
not
one.
at all. Thank you. All right, just wanted to say if you are just joining us, this is Zero Dark PressCorps. It's a live call-in show with the community. We are joined by developer and community manager KrazyFlynChicken. Make sure to stop by the PressCorps Discord through the link below, and you can get in the call queue as well. It grows every single second we pass by here. Joining us now is Liquid Popsicle from the 128th Artillery Regiment. Liquid, how are you?
Artillery rework.
Artillery
okay,
rework. Go. Right, no, right into it. I love it. Go for it. Go.
No, I'm having a great day. I'm curious as to how any plans for changes to artillery might work in before 1.0. And if not, I really want to see a howitzer tank because howitzers as they stand now are hard to use the way we like to use them. Also, the storm cannon is. And I don't mean to shit talk, but it's kind of absolute garbage, and we have no interest in using it whatsoever, because we're not about to sit here for a week and a half long setup time for something that's just going to get blown up by one person with smoke grenades in a satchel.
Yep, understandable.
Because I'm not saying the bunkers aren't fun, and the storm cannon is a mountain goal. It's something that once you get the bunker done, it's like, hey, look at this thing that we can make now. Trying to get it is painful. It's incredibly painful.
Yeah, that's understandable. I am not in a position to confirm or deny anything, but I can tell you with almost absolute certainty that we will definitely revisit artillery before 1.0. It's one of those things that keeps coming up in our conversations that I think it's just inevitable.
Is this beyond the howitzers being transformed into a trench emplacement?
Yeah, we hope so. It's still not decided exactly what the changes are going to be, but I'll tell you what we are very unhappy. I'll tell you more about where our minds are at with what we are happy.
What is the angle here with the changes? Like, what direction?
That's what I'm curious about.
What we're not happy about with artillery is that it's used primarily in the current game as a sniper. We don't really like that.
Yes.
We don't like the repair meta that goes on. So, like when you're shooting a town hall, that there's like 4 guys that sit there and repair it, and it's like a game of whether or not you brought enough ammunition, which is ridiculous. Because that's not what we feel like artillery should be. We feel like artillery should be like a sustained barrage, sort of what we saw you guys doing. Liquid in some of the earlier wars when you guys first got it started. You guys would build like giant artillery batteries, and you would just lob shells, and you guys seem to have shells that just went on forever, and that's what we'd like to see more of. But we'd like there to be a purpose, right? Like it seems almost like a waste of time to sit there and just fire artillery at a front line, kill 2 or 3 soldiers, and they just respawn a few seconds later, and just come back at you again. Seems like it almost takes more time to deliver artillery shells than it does to deliver the shirts.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's
what we'd like to see more of. We'd like to see just like an ambient amount of artillery fire, like you might expect to see in World War II or I.
So they're probably going to wind up being less accurate.
Where we are in that boat, we're in the exact same boat. I think we're maybe like on the other side of the boat, but we still push through and do stuff with artillery, despite the fact that mortars are horrible and FA is horrible and it's not fun to deal with in any sense, form, or fashion. But the few times that we do get them up, I personally, we will build in range of town halls and we will deliberately not kill them because it's not fun. It's not fun to just, okay, well, we have 200 howitzer shells and we could load them up and get rid of their town hall, and then the front line moves, and then we're useless. You know what I mean? It's not an enjoyable experience. What is when we're almost out of supplies and they're pushing in on us, and there's absolutely nothing we can do other than load up the guns, set the distance to about minimum, and start firing in a random direction towards the front line and creep the distance forward to push them back. That is incredibly fun, and I feel like it's not encouraged. The primary reason it's not encouraged is because howitzer shell splash is kind of eh. The shells are ridiculously expensive for what they are. If you use them like that, and the range is incredibly short. So in order to actually get into a position to do something like that, which you have to sit still and wait for something like that to happen, you get blown up by mortars and field artillery. And it's incredibly nasty late war because field artillery has the same range as you do, in fact more, because if you stick it in a trench, you can fire it out to 180 meters. And I love the way that the howitzers feel. If you could combine the howitzer and the storm cannon into one glorious machine that takes 2-3 minutes of setup just to get it ready to fire, and then you have to load it, and you need like one person physically carrying shells back and forth. Just make the shells super cheap and make it really hard to actually hit a specific target, but then you can just unload into a specific area and just keep firing. That's what's enjoyable. That is the most amazing experience when you're sitting in a trench and there's howitzer shells landing all over the place, and there's nothing you can do about it because it's artillery. Or if you're running up on an artillery battery, and this is one thing that I want to make very clear. It's not fun when you have no counter to artillery. What is fun is if you would be able to, because the storm cannon was a glorious experiment. If you had a howitzer that shot out to 500 meters, but you could hear it out to about 750 meters, everyone would know where it is, and a group of people would get together and hunt it down. And if the setup time isn't a ridiculous 2.5 weeks, it's okay, well, they got us, they knocked us down, we'll just get off for the night and go do it another time. I love the concept of the storm cannon. The howitzers have always been my favorite form of artillery because instead of being we're going to blow up this structure so we can advance, it's, we're going to use overwhelming firepower in specific areas to support our team. And especially with smoke shells. Smoke shells are so much fun to use.
So then it sounds like at least for the storm cannon, I can't speak to the other forms of fire support, but at least for the storm cannon, that really more sounds like that, or rather, it's less of the storm cannon itself being the issue, and more so just the context of everything around it, rendering it kind of not useful at all.
So there are two primary reasons why the storm cannon, in our eyes, is completely useless.
Okay.
The first is that it takes 1.5 to 2 weeks to set up, which is even at the end of the war, it still takes that long, which is absolutely horrible because if you try and build it in any position where it's going to get used, people are going to be attacking it every single night, and there's not much that you can do to defend it. I know we tried setting one up earlier this last war. I managed to convince people to do it, and the night, like we had just started setting up the bunker base, we had it ready to go, it was teching, get off for the night, get on the next day, they had blown it up with a prototype mortar half-track. And there wasn't anything we could have done about it. And having the long setup time, it makes it so unbelievably exposed because it's stationary. I have no qualms with the resource cost. None whatsoever. In fact, my perfect idea for the storm cannon may be gimp its range a tiny bit. It shouldn't have anywhere near as much damage as it does. Lower the cost of the shells a bit. Remove the power requirement. And make it, 3 to 6 hour setup in the middle of a field alone. One satchel is all it takes to get rid of it. And the reason I say that, and I would also like to see smoke shells for it, because smoke is incredibly fun. But the reason I say that is because long-range indiscriminate artillery support, when you're calling it in and when you have it supporting you, is incredibly fun. Right? When you just have a couple of people in a ridiculously expensive vehicle that are just blowing things up for you, it doesn't feel like they're there for you. It feels like they're there for themselves to get those kills and like, oh look, we killed the town hall. Look at us. It doesn't feel like a team effort.
Yep, agreed. I think I mentioned this to you a while ago, but when we were implementing the emplacement the emplacement AT guns, we were discussing the emplacement artillery. Because obviously we wanted to put one of those in when we put in the emplacements, but it got pulled for a lot of the same reasons you're echoing here. We got into a discussion about like where it would fit, how does it balance with the field artillery versus the howitzer, and we got into this like long drawn out discussion with a lot of those points you just mentioned about how we wanted to like have longer range, we wanted to like be more of like a suppression weapon, more of a like something that you can creep up, like your like rolling barrages, counter artillery, like all of this stuff was brought into this conversation, and then we thought to ourselves like this is a much bigger feature than like just implementing a new artillery piece. It's like it in that conversation, in that span of about an hour, it expanded from just adding one new emplacement to revamping an entire artillery system that we still felt really strong. We felt strongly enough to do that we wanted to do that we in the end pulled the emplaced artillery because we said, this is not ready. Like let's just take this out, and when we're ready to come back to this, let's come back to it. So we already have an emplaced artillery built, ready to go. It's just we need to revamp the systems. And again, it sounds like we're on the same. It sounds like we're on the same page. It sounds like the direction you want is the direction we're discussing.
Well, I can tell you, I await the day when the artillery rework drops, because I'm sure the second it does, we're gonna kick into high gear and we're gonna figure it out in about a day and a half, and it's gonna be an absolute massacre on the front line of coordinated artillery.
What if we give it to the collies first? How will you feel about that?
He will quit the game. He will just quit the game.
Honestly, a lot of my members would probably be pretty upset about that, because for us, it's always, I feel like we've been the only true dedicated artillery clan, at least that I've seen, that does anywhere near the level of large-scale coordinated artillery we do.
The only one that I can think of at least on the Colonial side, and I think they might have even phased themselves out as such, was the 22nd Artillery Regiment before they merged with the ACR, the Armored Cavalry Regiment, to become the 22 ACR that you see today. Yeah, I'm not even sure if they're still around. I think they are. But that's the only one I can think of, and that was like 2 years ago. So I can't.
Oh, you reminded me. There was one more thing that I wanted to point out with the storm cannon.
We'll make this the last thing, by the way, for the call.
Yeah, it is the last thing I wanted to bring up. The power system is, I think, the biggest reason why we don't even bother anymore, because a lot of what we do involves firing patterns and adjustment, right? And when we sit down on howitzers, we'll lay out a firing pattern, or if we just want to bombard a large area, we'll do what we call a sector fire. And in order to do that, you have to be able to adjust your aim left and right. And if we were to try and do that with a storm cannon or a storm cannon battery, we'd run out of power in about 5 minutes. And then we'd just be done for the combat. And I understand that the restriction's there because it's really, really powerful. I feel like it's too powerful. The amount of damage it doesn't need to be as strong as it is. The splash, the terror, and mostly just the terror. It's a terror weapon, and it fits great as a terror weapon, and it doesn't need to be anything more than just a terror weapon. You know what I mean?
Area denial. I would say area denial.
Yeah.
Through use of sheer terror, I guess.
I don't feel like the way the artillery plays with the spawn system right now is just it's not the greatest. It's not particularly enjoyable.
All right, Liquid, thank you so much for your input as always. I hope one of these days we can talk about something that isn't artillery, unless, of course, that's all you want to talk about, in which case, please stop on by whenever you like.
I am very happy with the vehicles, I will say. I am very, very glad with how they're turned out, and I'm also very happy that I figured out how to change the camouflage patterns because they look amazing. It's the vehicle system is glorious. The vehicle physics are amazing. You guys did an amazing job with that. And I love how fast you're bringing out new vehicles. So just amazing job. Keep it up.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, man.
Always nice talking to you guys.
Coming up next, the PressCorps spots Blemish. stopping by here in the
Hello.
call queue. Spots, how are you doing?
Good.
Good. What do you have for us here tonight?
I was thinking about this about HEFA. In my opinion, HEFA is kind of what, if you remember before I think it was the update that removed AP tank shells. Remember AP tank shells, and remember how they basically made tank combat almost impossible, and basically made organized clans overpowered in tank battles. Like basically a BT can one-shot light tanks. In my opinion, there's a kind of another issue. It's HEFA. HEFA. I've witnessed. I think it was last war. I was at Ulster Falls, and one HEFA just rolled in and clapped basically the entire town, and we couldn't do anything about it because it was hiding behind our bunker line.
Was it a concrete bunker line?
No, it was a wooden bunker line, but still,
really?
bunker line is a bunker line.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we did manage to rush and kill one of theirs with I think it was like a mortar half track and a tank, but still, you can't really do anything if they're hiding behind the bunker line. As well as that they used I want to make this aware. There's a a glitch with a HEFA where you can actually shoot an HEFA shell through a door, and you can, and when say for example it's at 33%, the minimum percent, that percentage, it doesn't take damage anymore. It can actually ignore that fact that it's frick, it hit on the outside, it hits in the inside, and it does damage to the building. AKA, it kills the safe house.
Where was this at again? You mentioned it earlier.
About Ulster Falls.
Ulster Falls. Okay, I thought you were talking about Hermit's Rest, which was, my God, that Hermit's Rest fight again is. I think this is the second time. From I think War 59 also ended at Hermit's Rest.
Yeah, but still, in my opinion, HEFA is not fun to play against. It's just shreds through garrison houses, and one thing with normal shells and normal FA shells, you can actually out repair them, and that's the thing. You can't really do anything against HEFA because it's just gonna shred through buildings.
Isn't ATFA kind of redundant? I guess we're getting more into KFC questions, but isn't ATFA kind of redundant if you have an anti-tank gun already? Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. I've been told that APFA is the answer to all of life's problems.
Yeah. Clearly.
Yeah, especially with tanks. I noticed that in my opinion, APFA should not be removed because it actually takes skill. Because the target you're aiming at actually has wheels and can actually move. That's my but I don't like HEFA. It's too brain dead easy to use. In my opinion, FA should take more skill to use because in my opinion, FA is a skill based weapon. It should not be like a point and click adventure game.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, so KFC, has there been any feedback from that the devs have noticed on the AT gun? So these are the field AT guns, the one with the very long barrel. Has there been positive, negative feedback on that, or do you think it's or maybe just no feedback at all, or little feedback, not enough to work with?
This is actually one of those things that I think the team is more excited about than the community. It seems like we've tried our best to get these field weapons to be useful in the field, but they seem to be largely unpopular. This most recent update we added, they actually have tank armor now. So previously, where they would just be destroyed by just shooting at it enough with HMGs and whatnot. Yeah, small arms. We now given them full-on tank armor. Now it's basically impossible to kill it with small arms. You have to use tank weapons to kill it. And we figure, early game, maybe this will be pretty strong. But players seem to shy away from it, so we're not blind to that, which means that there's probably some weakness, and I think that weakness is that it's too easy to get killed. Like you'll get grenaded and then it's gone, and then you could lose it to the enemy, which is the big danger.
Unless you're talking about FA.
Well,
yeah, unless we're talking about FA.
Not even
FA
FA, because FA versus AT, AT you need to bring up to the front to actually use, because it's direct fire as opposed to field artillery, which will always be, not always, but will mostly be safe in the back line because you're firing it from minimum 75 meters away.
And that's why I hate HEFA, because it can just shred through the enemy buildings, and the only way to counter HEFA is A, do a suicide rush, or B, grab a sticky bomb and try and get a sticky hit on it, even though I still don't know why it's now 1.6 stickies to kill it when it was 1 sticky.
Yep. Yeah, well, I didn't know. What I was saying was that the team is still excited to add more to this. I think we are still very excited to add more field weapons.
Real quick. I actually do have a suggestion about field weapons.
We'll make it the last one, yeah.
Sure.
It's just I want the ability to camouflage it, have the ability to hide it in bushes and stuff, and make it usable in late game as an ambush.
You need some pretty big bushes to stuff.
Yeah, but in some parts of the map, like the southern parts of the map, there's big enough bushes to hide it. Have you ever been to Fernac and going to Victor to Jacob? There's some really big,
awfully long.
There's some round McKinney's Fills, around that rock area. There's some pretty big bushes. That would actually
be very, very cool, but it's just so big.
That was one of the suggestions in our design document. In fact, was the team really wants field weapons to be a more important part of Foxhole. I think right now it is definitely not, but field weapons were a huge part of World War II. As big, if not bigger than tanks.
If you want to make
we do have to revisit it.
I got a suggestion real quick. If you want to make field weapons more usable, give us the ability for trucks to tow them.
Well, I mean, hold on. They already not fixed that, but
yeah, we already
that goes back.
We would have loved that, but there's too many physics involved with that. We can't. It's not trivial to just set up a towing.
Yeah, that got quote unquote fixed with the cranes and whatnot. But I will say that it comes back to what we mentioned at the very start of the show, which was the inherent design struggle of making war, but at the same time you got to adjust because in real life manpower matters over everything else. The life of a person matters over everything else, but not so much in Foxhole, where it's all about cost effectiveness and it's all about the things you make. Yeah, there was a post. I actually commented to this on the post, which was, I think it was a story about wardens. They kept on throwing people in front of a field artillery piece so that people could repair it. So people were just throwing themselves in front of rockets.
Oh, I saw that one.
Yeah, and just supposedly they were just throwing people at it in order to keep themselves safe. So KFC, shame on you for saying the Colonials don't care about their lives. The wardens
in the lore.
Who cares about the lore?
I hope someone talks about lore versus actual player culture. I hope someone brings that up because I'd love to get into that. But regardless, we can go off of many tangents. We have more calls to get to. Spots, thank you so much for stopping by. All right. Coming up next, we do. We have Stranger Days joining us. Stranger.
Hello.
Not a stranger at all. Welcome back.
I'm here again today. I think. I'm not certain. So I was originally going to talk about the issues that I've been seeing, wherein the Colonials have been complaining profusely that the Warden vehicles are overpowered late game. Whereas we spend roughly 4/5 of the war with just objectively worse vehicles.
By we, do you mean the Wardens?
Yeah, by we I mean Wardens.
You claim objectively worse vehicles?
Objectively worse vehicles.
Okay, go on.
Well, I wanted to talk about that, but then I thought to myself, nah, most Colonials probably already know that they have really powerful or just outright overpowered vehicles in early game. So Sammy's trying to get me to address the fact that Colonials... Sammy's trying to ask me to address the fact that Colonials haven't won any wars since the update war. If I can get onto that really quick. I think that the main issue with that is sort of the way that Wardens and Colonials are set up. Wardens found out that we weren't necessarily the defensive faction. Colonials are definitely the aggressive faction, but we're more like the late-game powerhouse faction. We pay a premium price for all of our late-game vehicles. Fact, the Colonial late-game end-of-tech tree BT is 15 less armats than than the standard Warden battle tank. Like, just that's a fact. There's no getting around that. We have the numbers here. Whereas the Wardens have to pay a premium, but in return we get higher armor, usually at the cost of speed. The Colonial early game vehicles, though, are fucking amazing. Like, I'd kill somebody for Colonial early game vehicles. Probably Colonial, but, beside the point. The Tankette is a fucking fantastic vehicle. It has got not the damage mitigation or armor, but the health of a light tank. It takes, 4 stickies to kill a Tankette. The only downside being that it's a little slow. In fact, it's really slow. I'm pretty sure that a CV could keep pace with it, which, depending on your perspective, might be a good thing, because then your defense force can't run off and leave behind your CV. But it's open top. That's its big downside. But as long as you treat it like a BT, push from your own lines, slowly move up, crawl defenses, it's just the outright most overpowered vehicle in early game, besides maybe the mortar half-track from last war. The other major thing that I wanted to talk about here is I have a lot of people who abhor the manual tech. Either because it's awful to just grab those parts and to fight your own team on tech, to have to split tech, to essentially vote with your tech, but also if you vote with your tech and you don't vote with the team, you're dragging your team down, you're dragging yourself behind. And also because it feels like a chore, right? Like, I've seen fobs up in Reaching Trail. 4 fobs, all filled with scrap. Each fob has a full inventory of scrap. There's somebody building a 5th fob, so that way they can put more scrap in, because they just want the aluminum or the iron there. They don't care about the scrap. Anybody can have the scrap, but they're just slaving away to get more tech. And I wanted to address that with a number of ideas, since I don't really have any other outlets to tell the public of my ideas.
It's a
One
subreddit,
of those
but go ahead.
No, I can't. I'm banned on subreddit.
Oh, well, okay. That's your problem.
So one idea is that what if, and this also goes into another thing where we don't see any vehicles get vetted because the war ends by that point. One side is either given up, or actually just one side is given up by the time we get to vetted vehicles. Last war we almost saw vet 3 vehicles. It was very nice. So what I wanted to say was, we could have it, or you could have it, so that way when you vote with your tech, right, instead of having it be a manual tech where you have to put in a certain amount of tech to get to the next tier, we switch that to automatic. So once a certain time has passed, the vehicle that has had the most prototypes made for it, the vehicle that has the most prototype kits produced, would get vetted, and then the rest of the vehicles get teched. So that way there's less arguments, there's less fighting, there's less tech wars going on, and both factions don't feel like they get behind in tech. This also allows both factions to look at vehicles and see what they would want to vet, and allows us to play around with vetting more. It can also potentially reduce the amount of power that vetted vehicles have, although I don't even think that would really be an issue, because emplaced ATs and emplaced MGs already allow us to counter powerful vehicles even into late game. The other idea would be that we would have a sort of the same system essentially, but minus the vetting part and minus all the vehicles get teched, just automatic tech progression, and then the vehicle that gets voted for most is the one that gets teched. This would further allow us, so that way we don't need to fight on other things. I know that in the Warden faction we had given a lot of thought to what vehicles would be good vetting, what vehicles would be good vetted, and one of the issues that we've run into is some people grab vehicles early, and we've had to sort of rail against that, because this vehicle would be amazing for vetting. Like, the tracked armored car, for example, basically becomes a light tank with a machine gun once you vet it. Literally just one level of vetting, it moves about the same speed as a light tank, it has the same armor and health as a light tank, more or less. But we haven't been able to do that because there are so few Warden infantry support vehicles available. We have the half-track the LMG LUV, the standard armored car, and the tracked armored car. That's like, I can count that on less than a single hand. I suppose you can count the heavy armored car now in this war, but in the past we just haven't had those sorts of vehicles.
Mhm.
So we've had an issue trying to get people to agree that those vehicles would be good vetted. We've sort of had to eat rat soup, if you will. And this system would make it so that way you could also potentially vet those vehicles, because once you get past that vehicle, when it goes around for the next round of vetting, right, it would be able to vet the vehicle that gets the most votes, and that would also create more want or need for the faction to work on the tech system or to gather more resources. Because, for example, the Warden LMG LUV actually isn't necessarily very good vetted. It gets about double its health, which, considering that it goes from 2 AT rifle shots to 4 AT rifle shots, that's not a lot. The big thing, though, is that it gets like a 10% speed buff, which isn't a lot, but it's on a Jeep, so that's a lot of stats, actually. That's my diatribe for the moment. If you'd like to cut in, give me a chance to drink water.
I want to turn a question on you. Because you said the war is always over in the end game, right? And then you brought up the vehicle vetting.
Yes.
What end game are you talking about? Do you feel that the war ends after the first round, or do you find that the war ends like during the vetting phase? And
I feel like the war ends right as we're starting the vetting phase, and I feel like that is due to colonial despair. It's hard to find exactly the right word, but Colonials have all of this early game aggression. They have absolutely amazing vehicles if we don't take vetting or a second go around the tech tree or late game into account. Assuming that the game ended once Colonials reached roughly like their siege tank, if the Colonials were able to take Port of Rhyme or they were able to take Buckler Sound, I do believe that Colonials would just win. But the issue is that if Wardens can get to our BTs, if Wardens can get to our FA, if we can get our combined arms, Colonials seem to give up. And that's because our vehicles on paper, if you're just having one BT, one Warden BT, fight one Colonial BT, then the Warden BT is superior. It has more armor. It has more health, barely, but a little. And so on paper, if you're just fighting crew to crew, it seems like the Wardens have better vehicles, because we kind of do. That is where all of our early game aggression went into. That is the trade-off for Colonials having just the absolute best vehicles in the game for the first four-fifths of the war.
okay,
Grab some more water.
Yeah, I think that one of the big questions is it a matter of balance, of which there's absolutely always going to be balance, but I guess, is it a matter of balance, or is it a matter of the Colonials simply haven't had enough time yet to adjust and finish the war out before the Wardens can respond in kind and kind of bounce back like they did in the past one, in the 61st conflict. So it's so this is KFC. This is why we're in the weeds now, and this is why it's hard, because there's a lot of factors that go into discerning how a war is fought, and now that we've thrown in asymmetry, it's just gonna get harder from here on in. So yeah, I mean, I guess you count that as a good thing, right?
that's good and
If I could
bad.
say- If I could say another thing, I think that, and I'm really not trying to be mean or a salty Warden vet or a loyalist tryhard when I say this, but I do think that Colonials don't know how to use their vehicles. And I'm saying that entirely from the perspective of somebody who wants a fair fight, who wants to fight with the Colonials. Wardens extensively tested every single vehicle we could get our hands on in every dev branch we could get into. Like, we were talking about, like, I remember a DK officer tested each individual tier of vetting on our battle tanks and tested how many shells it would take to deplete their armor. Then we tested how many light tank shells and how many battle tank shells. We tested everything that we could get our hands on. We tested until we were like, okay, it's fucking 5 a.m. for me. I'm gonna log off. And then we put it all on a spreadsheet somewhere. I don't know where that spreadsheet is, but I helped make it. And we figured out, the wardens, that is, in Warden Military, we sat there before the war started for 2 days. Not a whole 2 days, but we had a meeting, and then we had a second meeting the next day, where we discussed what the Colonials could do with their tech, and what we could do to counter that. What we should be doing as a faction. We looked at the entire tech tree, top to bottom, and discussed and dismantled what each of these pieces could do. We were wrong about some of it. Like, at first, we looked at the emplaced machine guns and emplaced anti-tank guns, and we thought they were awful because we weren't putting them in Tier 2 trenches late game, and we also forgot they're available, like, third day of the war, and there's basically nothing to counter them on third day of the war. You could maybe, like, high explosive grenade rush them, but even then, you'd be dying in the literal hundreds, which, last war, that was actually, or not last war, the very first war that came out, that was a thing that happened. There was one player who managed to get 197 kills in an hour, and the Colonials suffered about 600 deaths in that region. So he accounted for a third of all Colonial deaths in that region. God, I love emplaced MGs.
They are really good.
I think that one bridge in, I forgot, from the last war.
Bonehaft and Spearhead.
Yeah, that's the
70,000.
real kill right there.
70,000 deaths.
Yep, that
Both.
sounds about right.
Actually, I think it was about 90,000 at the point where we broke the siege.
Hey, I don't know if you had any final closing comments, but I think we'll move on.
I don't really have the time to discuss a breakdown of what I think the Colonials should be doing with their tech, and that would also be really,
Oh, if you want to start some shit, then yeah, go for it. But I think we're good.
Well, I mean, if you want me to start some shit, I'm fine with it. So
put it on the. Well, where can you talk? That isn't the subreddit or Foxhole Discord.
I could talk here. If you wanted me to do like a breakdown of the Colonial tech tree and what I think that their actual combat tactics would be, I would honestly love to do that.
Maybe next time.
Through the Colonial tech tree.
I think
maybe next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, Stranger
Have a wonderful time, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, coming up next in the call queue, Johansen. Johansen, welcome back. Thank you for stopping by.
Hello. I just want to talk about a short topic today. I don't want to drag it out for too long, since I don't know how much time there's left and so on. It's about small arms. Small arms in the tech tree, to be precise, because I don't understand why that some small arms are magically exclusive, like storm rifles up against a light machine gun, which makes no sense. Storm rifle's an infantry weapon, right? You know, SMG and carbine combined, but the light machine gun is a support weapon. And since, you know, support weapons aren't used that much, unless it's a heavy machine gun because it packs a punch, then it gets neglected. And it's very sad for me, because I'm a leader of a clan, which we like to use a light machine gun as a part of our squad tactics.
Okay, can I ask how you use the light machine gun as part of your squad tactics?
Well, we use it as, you know, support weapon. We set it up, give suppressive fire whilst the other infantry moves up and kills the target. Pretty simple. Suppressive
Okay,
fire.
you do use a light machine gun for that, or you think that the machine gun is just better?
Well, we do use light machine gun for it. Light machine gun, it's too slow to be wielded, you know, in a normal combat situation, unless you sit back, and you know, it's too weak to pack a punch like the machine gun. So it's a bit in a gray area where it gets kind of neglected.
Yeah, we actually had a tremendously difficult time trying to balance this in the storm rifle and the HMG, because they all kind of have very similar combat roles. So our natural inclination was to look at like real world references. What was the use of the BAR primarily? The unfortunate reality was that even in real life, they struggled to find a strong suitable combat role for a weapon like the BAR.
Yeah.
At the time, it was designed, believe it or not, to be a weapon that provided suppression fire on the move, so that while you're advancing, you're supposed to be unloading this BAR on the enemy position to give suppression. But for obvious reasons, that never worked. Like, if you just walked slowly forward firing a weapon, you're going to get mowed down by the MG42s. So ultimately what it ended up being was really just a weapon for somebody who really wanted to carry the extra weight and ammo. But it didn't have much of a combat role, and we struggled with exactly the same problem. We tried to give it a spot, and we think we found like a pretty okay one. I think some people still find some uses for it, but I think the cost of it costing RMATs makes it prohibitively expensive, and maybe makes it less ideal.
Well,
But don't worry, we are coming back around to that stuff. I think that the mere travesty of there only being like 6 weapons in the game for infantry is kind of like is something we want to remedy.
yes, I'd
But
love
then-
to see more small arms.
But then do we run the risk of having things really bleed and blend together then? Because the more things you add in, the less territory, I guess you could say, each one cover each of a role that each individual one covers, and now you're getting into niches, which can get a little crazy with I would imagine the economic side. So it's all well and good in a game like, I don't know, say Destiny, where you can have 1 billion guns, and that's fine because whatever. But in Foxhole, everything's player made. So then, do you run the risk? I know we're kind of moving over to another topic, but do you run the risk there of diversifying too much for its own good?
You know what though? We actually had an internal debate about this. We have like the question for me or for you would be like, is that really a bad thing? Like, what if the weapons really were very similar? Like, surely this is a realistic issue too. Like, it's not like every weapon in World War II, like every rifle in World War II, was so distinct that you could really tell them apart. I mean, if you look at like a fanatic would be able to tell you for sure, or a soldier in that army would definitely know the difference. But like from a layman's perspective, like how much faster did it shoot? How much did it jam? These things were pretty minor, or were not earth-shatteringly different. Ultimately, any soldier picking up any rifle could use it. So I don't know. It's hard to say. We'll have to see where we land.
I guess I'm running under the assumption that there is only one kind of ammo for each individual gun, which is the main worry, right? Which there are examples. There are examples of interchangeable rounds for different kinds of things, but I guess the fear is that if you have 10 different kinds of rifles, you're going to have 10 different types of ammo, and then that turns into a situation where, well, gee, yeah, I thought we had a lot of guns and a lot of ammo, but it turns out you can only really fire realistically 20 shots from this type of gun and whatever.
And then the UI falls apart because it needs 30 different ammo types. And
also that.
Can't
and I'm sure
possibly
that would be hell to code. I'm sure that'd be really fun to code. So there is that danger to it. I may be a little alarmist there, but it's in the back of my mind.
If I can speak,
Mhm.
it's well, I think the light machine gun is a perfect weapon because it's faster than the machine gun. You can actually deploy it in time to actually shoot it before friendly infantry moves up, and it can kill, but it's more of a suppressive weapon like the real life light machine gun was. I think it's an excellent weapon that's just underappreciated, and that's why it gets neglected, and saddens me to hear about it. See, it gets neglected.
Yeah, I agree.
Another thing, this is just more of a quick thing. It's ammo, when you put a rifle in the town hall and has ammo, it just disappears. I think it's a bit annoying. The ammo goes to waste. Couldn't you make like an internal ticker to let's say I have this rifle with 7 bullets, goes in, then there's this internal counter that says, all right, there is 7 bullets, and then let's say there is another rifle coming in with 5 bullets, and it's 12, and then it gets put back into the town hall as an entirely new clip, so not to waste ammo.
Yeah, that's always been something for the OCD in all of us that really pissed me off.
Especially when you're on low supplies.
Yeah, I mean, an unload function would be very nice. I'm sure that's hell behind the scenes.
Yeah. I'm grateful that we managed to keep the mechanic that you lose your clip when it's
when you're reloading,
when it's emptied out.
Whether you're using
I really like
SMG
that.
mag.
So
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. It's more.
It's when you're putting it back into the stockpile.
Yeah. Then it shouldn't get lost. It's like it just vanishes into the void.
Nah, I like it. I like that we kept that. I think it's more realistic than most games that let you just instantly transfer your ammo to the next clip. It's ridiculous.
No, it's in the town hall. Let's say I put the rifle back into the town hall.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know what we're talking about? Like, let's say I take out a rifle, I take out a magazine, I put the, I guess a rifle would be a clip. So I take out a clip, and then put the clip into the rifle. Oh, I don't want it anymore. Put the rifle back into the stockpile, and then that clip that I put in is gone forever.
Yeah.
You know what's great about that, though? I love that that matters so much to players.
There was no argument for this.
No. I love how much that matters to players. That that you're putting a rifle in and you're worried about every little bit of ammo. I don't know that like it's not great that it's just disappearing, but I think it's really cool that ammunition in our game actually has that kind of an effect on people. Yeah. Like it sends that message that it is important.
When you're scrounging in a desperate defense of Hermit's Rest, yeah, that's absolutely something that you're going to wind up doing.
I've heard multiple times people like, don't submit it to stockpile. There's ammo in there, and then some random just does it anyways. Like, it pisses people off, and it's annoying at times, especially when you have like 10 rifle clips, and there is 15 fully loaded rifles just sitting there in the town hall waiting to be used.
Oh boy! All right, hey Johansen, thank you so much for stopping by. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Have a nice evening, and see you later.
See ya.
All right, coming up next, Liam Boss 01. Liam, how you doing?
Good. It's great.
Good. What'd you have for us here?
Well, okay. I've noted. Okay, a lot of players have been complaining about basically the grind to get aluminum and iron. Whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was wondering, if there were ever any plans, to allow mines like salvage and component mines to produce small amounts of aluminum or iron.
Right now, they only do not scrap, but salvage, right?
Salvage and components and sulfur.
Yeah, the original resources.
Yeah.
I doubt it. And the reason why I want to say that is because it's not the design intention that you guys are supposed to want this stuff explicitly. I know that's just a tall ask. I know a lot of you guys are really into the tech game. You really want to get to that vehicle. It's really important to you, and you don't care about the scrap. You want the tech. But if you guys were around for the test where we implemented those randomly spawning items into the forts and the town halls, what we noticed players were doing with this that we really didn't like was that players were just going around to the random forts and collecting tech and bringing that back and then punching that into the town hall. And it was its own entirely separate system. Like these players weren't mining for their team. They weren't producing weapons. They weren't running logistics. They were just going around collecting tech and then punching it in and teching stuff up. And what really bothered us about that was we ended inadvertently, we created a game loop that was extremely boring. Like, maybe it's rewarding to just get your tech and so that you can get the weapon that you want, but that's not ultimately what we want players to be doing. What we want is for players to just be running their logistics, trying to win the war with everything they have, and inadvertently, as a result of that, also getting technology. And that's sort of like a bonus for those people who are doing it. So it was intended that you're not supposed to be able to easily farm this stuff. And so I don't suspect that like iron mines will ever be a thing.
I think that's your answer there.
Yeah, great. Now, kind of on the idea of the aluminum and iron whatnot, would there be a way to like better easily identify fields whatnot that would have these resources?
Sorry, say again?
Okay, so on the subject of aluminum and iron whatnot, would there be a way to more easily identify what fields have these resources.
Don't they all have them? Like, there's a chance. Like, that's the RNG aspect, right? Or am I misinterpreting that?
It feels like that there are certain mines that, like certain fields that have them and others don't.
We're still not sure on that one. The jury is still out. We're not sure how we feel about it. The concept that, I think the way it works right now is it's randomly assigned. So when the node responds, it might be iron, it might be aluminum, and we're hoping in the future we'll have more different types, which might make this more rare to get the one that you want. We're not sure how we feel about it yet. I think some of the feedback we heard early on with the system was players wanted to see a reason to hit those scrap mines that are further inland, the ones that are like way up at the front line. Right now they exist, but nobody ever uses them. They always just use the ones that are nearest to the refinery, which makes sense. But what if there was a reason to go to those ones? What if there was valuable resources? And right now, the system is so basic, it's just random. So maybe you find one that has the iron you're looking for and you will mine it out. But we haven't really seen that yet. So yeah, we're not sure. We expect some things will move there.
Okay.
Do you have anything else for us, Liam?
Oh, yeah, I got a few more questions. But still on that, here's my unpopular opinion. I still think it's a good idea to have a player-driven tech tree.
Can you expand on that?
What do you mean?
It's Foxhole's really a game where you like advance, to win this war. So by having a player-driven tech tree, it really gives people more a purpose to farm and stuff, to actually help that increase, And some people may say that they hate the grind for it, whatnot.
Okay. So you are a fan of this, but not of the previous one that was all automatic.
Yeah. Okay, because I've owned this game for about 2 years now. So I remember before it was automatic whatnot, when we'd have to get like tech parts whatnot, and then use those.
Right. Good. Well,
still kind of give you this more meaning,
on that we agree. We think that for all the criticisms of the tech tree, I think one thing we do like is that players right now are teching up. There seems to be an extreme emphasis on what gets researched, which is really cool to see. And then that it seems to be progressing at a reasonable rate, a reasonably well-controlled rate. Where before it was almost like completely random. Like, you have been a veteran for the game for a long time, so you remember that, like, how sometimes one team would just get like 3 days ahead in tech and the other team would just fall ridiculously far behind. It was often related to population. In this one, at least it seems that both teams are progressing at a reasonably like steady pace. But there's enough control there that we had some criticisms when it first came out that it was going too slowly, and we looked into it. And we found out the reason for it was because a lot of people were hoarding the resources, which we think has lessened now. So, yeah, I think overall we're pretty okay with that. One part we're not happy with is the infighting. We don't like that the team seems to be arguing over what is and isn't researched. There should probably be a more definitive choice that occurs at some point. Maybe there just needs to be an end to the argument and some way to resolve that argument without vote kicking each other. Once we get that figured out, we'll have this tech tree like totally
squared away. Isn't that the fault of the system, however, to make things such a to make tiers? Like, for instance, if you had to choose between two things, and if you don't get what you want, you've essentially wasted all the effort put into that choice that didn't win. And by putting the stakes so high, don't you just wind up making a system that is so hostile, causes so much infighting that it's not really helpful at that point?
Yeah, precisely.
So
we are very dialed into that complaint.
Okay, so are we going to be looking at changes in the future to mitigate that?
Yeah, we expect so.
Okay. I don't know. Part of me just hates the tech tree. From a lore perspective, I think it's stupid that every single war there has to be researchers researching the same things over and over again. As if there's a guy, as if there's a colonial scientist way back in Veli or Messiah going, hey guys, what if we just made a tank that just lobs high explosives from this far away? And then every single war he just keeps coming up with that same idea and they just keep forgetting. Or even
He has
not
to
even that.
he has to convince his superiors to research it again, to put the resources into that, like repurposing his factories to producing that particular vehicle. That's how I explain it.
Sir, I just came up with a great idea. What if it's a mask, but it can like filter out the gas? I was like, oh, that's genius. Let's wait 3 weeks before we can deploy this and save thousands of lives.
Throughout the Rona.
For the record, so I actually do adjust that in my kind of PressCorps canon or my PressCorps lore. If you notice, I don't make any mention about tech. It's all deployment. The joke is that at the end of every war, they ship all the stuff back, and then at the start of a new war, they have to like slowly deploy things again. It's like, ah, shit, we just set this back. Send it back. So it takes another like 5 months for the battle tanks to come back.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just me. That's my roleplay part. Anyway, Liam, did you have anything else for us?
Yes.
We'll make it a last thing here.
Okay. I've noticed that all the vehicles kind of got the new vehicle system, except for bicycles, like the new driving mechanic.
Oh yes. Well, not just bicycles. The boats didn't get it either.
I mean, okay, for the bicycles, whatnot, a few things that seem a bit unrealistic is that you don't have the option to really coast, you know? So, like, you're just constantly pedaling, which seems like a waste of energy.
Yeah, I don't think bikes are high on our priority list right now, but we agree
he's got
that
a point, though.
that should probably be rolled over to the new physics system.
And, like, say, another thing on bikes is that, like, what if, say, the fuel for bikes was just your stamina, you know? So, like, you could boost on bikes for an increase of speed for
That
the
makes sense.
expenses.
That'd be awesome, but what about unicycles?
The storm cycles.
Don't say unicycles. Don't say it too loud. People get mad. They get mad why I haven't fixed logistics yet. If you add in unicycles, okay.
I'm mad it's not in the game, man. I'm really not. Like it's like with HB actually like animated the whole thing. It was working in Engine, but we just didn't put it in. I was like, come on, Mark, what the hell?
It was great.
It's a shame. Hey, Liam, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. All right, coming up next from the Swords of Morrow, Nocturne. Nocturne, thank you so much for joining us. What'd you have for us here?
It's nice to be on again after so long. Yeah, so what I mainly have to talk about is the physics system, and after comparing it with a couple other different games, I can sort of see the ups and downs of how it's implemented in this game.
I'm assuming this is vehicle physics, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you think it's an improvement overall from before the new physics system?
Considering there wasn't any last time, yeah, because with the new physics system, there's more possibility and like actually having to how do I put this? Consider like your movements and heavier vehicles, to say the least, because you can't back up from a cliff now and you'll be fine. But to get closer to a cliff, to hit something that's down the cliff, it's more of a challenge and a risk because you can go a bit too far and then you're just stuck sliding down.
Oh man, yeah.
So then, how do you think it can be improved, or rather, what don't you like about it?
Mainly for the wheeled vehicles, specifically. Like if you had to pick one, the motorcycle, that's the most one that could really use some rework.
Because it spins out too often?
Yeah, that's exactly why. So after like doing a bit of research and playing some other games that have wheeled vehicles and physics, I've come across how World of Tanks kind of does their physics with the armored cars, and how so if a tank were to go at the same speed as an armored car, that would completely like spin out. It would crash constantly, and it wouldn't be very fun to control. So how they did it was the armored cars sort of have this physics cheat where the wheels are much more glued to the ground in a way.
Yeah, ours aren't though, which I like. You can do your jump all you want.
Yeah, you can still like go over jumps and everything, but as opposed to like just spinning out constantly, it's a lot more friction resistance, I guess, is what I'm going with.
I think the bike is or the motorcycle is a tough example because it's sort of it's unique in some of its when Casey was doing this, when he first started doing the R&D for this, he started with the LUV because he felt like the LUV was like that middle ground of like what you want to feel good off-road versus on-road, and he really worked that system in, particularly with the open-topped LUV. So we got it feeling really good, and then from there we just started like moving outward to the motorcycles, to the tanks, and we just started building up on that. And the motorcycle is an outlier because it's one of the few vehicles that will move faster than the LUV on road, and then on top of that it has a boost, and then on top of that the physics are like strange because it's only got the two wheels plus the sidecar, so it actually took a little bit of extra work to make that work. So the motorcycle by itself is kind of like this weird corner case that was really difficult to fit in. But that being said, like a lot of the other vehicles still have some physics issues as well, but we're working through those one at a time. We're just sort of like, as the issues come in, we get like the one report I saw today was like this tank doing like a weird like roll when it got stuck on a cliff and between a cliff and a rock. That's the sort of thing that we will log and we'll send to Casey, and he'll investigate why that happened, and then he'll fix it. And slowly over time, the physics has just been getting better and better. The vehicles, I feel, are actually getting to be a little bit more reliable. And now the last real hurdle is like tackling these really weird outliers like the motorcycle. But that's going into that earlier question. That's also why the bicycle right now doesn't have the new physics. It's because we didn't want to waste inordinate amounts of time trying to fix the bicycle when the tanks are doing weird barrel rolls.
That's a good point and everything too. It's more important to focus on the vehicles that are actually used more often than not, and the bike is kind of just sitting on these sidelines for now, which is fine.
It's why we gave it to you guys for free in the tech tree now. It's like if you want to use it, go ahead, but it probably won't work.
Secondly, it's a smaller part, but it's about the siege tank and a sort of implementation that it feels like it's a vehicle / weapon for the previous update than supposedly the current one. It's like when we had those lines of pillboxes and gun nests, and then like that would be a really good vehicle to get in because you couldn't penetrate that with infantry besides using smokes and satchels, which is apparently also going to be changed. But as it is now, I think it could be more appealing if it was given sort of anti-vehicle role as well, for a sort of trade-off. And that kind of being essentially a weaker shell, but having the sort of longer range as compared to the shells now.
Yeah, that's loaded. I think the ballistic tank or the mortar tank has not yet found its place in the meta, and there's no doubt about that. I think that there's more we could do to give it a place, but I think what we're more we will definitely be tweaking numbers as time goes on. But it's difficult when we don't get to see it in live. I don't think it has ever been researched since it was implemented, and probably for good reason. There's much that's left to be desired with it, but we're okay with that. As long as the game still feels reasonably balanced. If this is a tank that nobody wants to use, then we'll have to come back around to that. But I think our ideal situation for balance is that we'd like to see more vehicles in more specialized roles. So it's not that I don't like the idea of there being like an AT round for the mortar tank, but wouldn't it be better if you had just had an AT tank and then like this just existed as an anti-structure weapon if should you need it? Maybe lowering the tech tree. Maybe if we expand the tech tree out, maybe there's 20 more levels, and this can just find a nice niche somewhere in the middle somewhere. I think that's more what we'd rather see than an AT round for it.
Yeah, like maybe like a cheaper version of it that could be sitting lower, and it's between needing smokes and satchels, or just bum rushing a certain emplacement. It's just there. It does its job. Sort of weaker, maybe, so it's more appealing since it'll be cheaper to make.
Yeah, and maybe when we get around to revamping the structures, like the bunker bases, and maybe those get stronger, maybe there's a nice spot in there for it to exist. Maybe there's new defensive structures that are just way too good at killing things like silverhands or light tanks, where you'll want something like this. It's really hard to say this early on.
Yeah, but it's getting there though. It's certainly a good a bedrock vehicle, as I guess you can call it, where you can build up from it.
Yeah. You know what though? You mentioned like, oh, you want to see a weaker version of this. Personally, I want to see a stronger one. This one to me should be the lightest of these types of vehicles. I want to see like a giant. I don't know if you've seen the original concept art or the original Foxhole mood art that Julian made when he like 2 years ago. But there's one of them on there that's like a siege tank that's like enormous, like the size of the bulwark, enormous, with like 4 cannons, and I think that would be cool. I know that it's not going to be the most exciting thing, what with the siege tank being where it is, but I think that kind of a concept would be really cool to see.
I think giving that like a tryout for like a single war, but like given maybe for free, or like sacrifice these many armats in this location and it shall be summoned. You will have won the entire war. Do not let it get destroyed, otherwise you're not getting it back.
Yeah, like a relic vehicle or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Nocturne, thanks so much for stopping by. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Good time.
Have a good rest of your night.
Too. All right. Coming up next, Brownie Meister. Brownie.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so how are you doing today, KFC and Geoffrey?
Doing well?
Good.
Okay, can you guys hear me alright?
Mhm.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I have 2 questions. Well, one's more of a comment, but is VAC now enabled on Foxhole?
This is Valve anti-cheat.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I also actually that's about it. That's all I wanted to ask. Thank
All
you.
right. Awesome.
You're welcome.
Have you seen?
I should probably get
so-
off soon. Maybe 1 or 2 more.
Gotcha. In terms of Valve anti-cheat, is it safe for people to mod again in terms of things like sound mods, vehicle skin mods? So these are all client side and they don't really affect anything in terms of things that actually make a difference, I guess you could say, a tangible difference. Like, I don't know, are those cleared or can you not comment?
Always with the hard-hitting questions. I really can't comment on this,
Sure.
but I will say I will give you our canned response when people do ask us directly, and we need to give a response. Strictly speaking, all third-party applications are not allowed. Will you be VAC banned for it though? We can't say.
Because you don't have control over that?
Yeah, exactly. But it is better to be safe than sorry and not use them for the time being. Don't alter the pack files. Don't use mods until we can get like a proper modding platform that can be developed. And Mark is a big. Well, I can't promise that we'll even have a modding platform, but I know that it is a big. Like it's something that Mark is
He's sympathetic.
Really wants to do. Exactly. Very sympathetic for. So we are hopeful one day you guys will be able to use the mods that you've been working so hard on. But for now, we strongly advise against it.
Awesome.
Okay, so it's from how you worded it, it's more of a 50-50 chance for me to get some sort of punishment on my account if I use a mod for Foxhole, like Skaj's sound mod.
By account, do you mean like your Steam account?
Yes.
I don't even know if that's 50-50. That's just up in the air completely.
Okay, that's all I wanted to ask.
You're
That's all
rolling the
Valve.
dice with that, so don't do it.
He'll say don't do it. You take the risk. So.
Sounds good.
All right. Hey, Brownie, thank you.
Yep.
Coming up next, Disc. Disc, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. All right. So I had a quick question. No, it's not quick at all. I had a question for you. See, I'm a frontline player, and I have a couple of difficulties these days because I feel like the entire infantry combat has been left at the wayside a bit, and I see what you guys are doing big changes and stuff, like the vehicle system and what you did with trenches. And I want to know, is there a big change that's going to come to the infantry physics and stuff? Let's say adding bullet physics and stuff like that.
Yes.
All right. And will deployables be anytime in the future coming?
They're still on. They have not been axed. That's all I can really say about it. I know that the tripods, particularly, that continuously comes up internally. The only thing I would tell you is if I didn't think it was coming before 1.0, but I haven't gotten any kind of confirmation for that yet. So it's still possible.
If I can expand on that first part of the question in terms of bullet physics, how would bullet? Can you just expand on that point and what you have envisioned? How would bullet physics enhance the experience?
It's more I just what this is a feeling for me because I felt for a long time a lot of people felt like the vehicle physics have just been incomplete. They were janky. And
I'm sorry,
stuff.
Did you say vehicle or bullet?
No, I'm just comparing to vehicle
okay,
right now.
Okay.
The vehicle physics were they felt janky. The joke with Foxhole is that the vehicles were janky and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys did the physics update for that, and that was amazing. And I want to know if a whole system of that, just comparable to that, could be coming for infantry because I just really feel like it's still in the janky state.
Well, what's janky about it? If you can illustrate that for us.
Just bullets, them being weird, how they work, the tracers not even being with the hit scan. It's that weird stuff. Invisible bullets are where it's not a physical bullet, so there's no delay. It just instantly hits. It's just weird like that. I feel like that would be just fixing anything like that could be it instantly fixes the sniper and stuff like that because guns like the sniper and the shotgun say the shotgun just I'm not the first person that said the shotgun is just completely useless at this point. So
What?
What?
It is? I'm just kidding.
Okay.
One thing I would like to see. I know this isn't bullet physics, but I think melee needs a big look at because that's really janky. You want to talk about janky? Throwing punches is the jankiest thing in the game right now, hands down. It's stupid. Now, at the same time, I understand that you don't want melee systems so good that everyone's just throwing down their weapons and just throwing punches in a big, huge gang fight, which would be cool, but also kind of stupid. Which is why I don't like the idea of the shovel being something that can be used as a weapon. Because the moment you do that, you're gonna have roving gangs of shovel warriors, of shovel knights, and sledgehammer warriors and hammer bros just trying to fight. Guns will be rendered obsolete the moment you introduce melee for things like that. But
shovel jousting.
Yeah, no, that will absolutely be a thing, 100%. But just in terms of just throwing punches and even the bayonet physics are they're interesting. I don't know. I feel like because it's a trade-off. I'm inclined to say I'm kind of hijacking the question, so forgive me.
Yeah, sorry. I really want to get my stuff out.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. I hijacked it. My bad.
I don't really mind, honestly, melee. It's not part of the game that I want. I mean, maybe the stabbing with the bayonet could be done so you can charge with it instead of just being a hit and you just start hitting, weird like that. But I feel like the entire system, combat, it just feels like you're running around and shooting stuff, all the time. There's no coordination. You'll say you have a heavy weapons, you're just not coordinating with anybody. You're just trying to survive alone because everybody's just running around on their own. There's no reason to work with anybody. You know what I mean?
What would you say is the biggest culprit for that? What is it about our mechanics that cause people to do that?
I think the biggest culprit is it's just not enough put into it. I think just not developed enough. It's like the whole system
Can
itself.
you point to something more substantial? Like, is it the movement? Is it player movement? Is that a big part of it? You think?
I wouldn't say that's the movement necessarily. I'd say it's more like really the bullets. Like you know, you can just run around and shoot people. Like you try to mitigate that by reducing the range of like the rifle and especially the revolver, because that was a big problem. People just running around and shooting from like half the fucking map. But like it just I can't even specify what needs like to be fixed specifically. But I do know that let's say if there's a way to make like stability more like dynamic, instead of just being, oh, you're in cover, you get better cover, so you get better stability. So just stop moving for 1 second, you can just shoot really faster than the other person, or something like that. I feel like that just encourages people to just like cheat the system again. Like there's no, you can still go around the system to just like keep moving around really fast.
Granted, you'll always have that in a video game. People always vying for peak performance, right, at all times. People who are just so good, it's like they're flying. But I think you are touching on something, and I think I can relate. It's just hard to pinpoint something we can really anchor it down on. I think it's just comprehensive. I think it's corner aiming. I think it's the fact that hasn't been addressed in. I don't even know if that's something that does even consider a problem, but I think it is. Just the ridiculous fact that we're still aiming by corner as opposed to a camera that can adjust. I think it's player movement. I think there's still way too much shadow dancing, and I think it's just too light. It's still way too light in the area. I would prefer something heavier, way heavier. And I think part of it is also just the inherent fact that we are in an isometric camera, which that's something that's not changing anytime soon. But maybe the level of which the camera is in can also be maybe made higher. I don't know. That's an argument in and of itself that I can't really settle on. But either way, but I think it's comprehensive. If you can't pinpoint anything, I'm just kind of going off what I have in my head. Would you agree with any of that disc before we move on to Max?
No, there's a lot of stuff to agree with, but I mean, the point I was trying to make, honestly, just that, like, if I tried to pinpoint a problem with the vehicles before, like, I wouldn't pinpoint, like, oh, the physics were wrong, like, how do I repair the physics? Well, like, the vehicle should not, like, accelerate instantly, it should not stop instantly, and stuff like that, but, like, it's just the whole system was changed, and I feel like when the whole system is changed, it just feels so much better,
Like, so how do you want combat to feel?
It should really just feel like people are working together for a common cause instead of just working on their own. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I want to go back to what Captain in Arms was saying there, because I think I strongly agree with everything that you said. I think a big part of the problem is the corner aiming. Which, for those of you who've been paying attention to the dev streams, we've touched on the reason why it's been such a difficult problem to solve. But I won't get into that now. It's very technical. But it's what I feel like is one of the biggest culprits for like running and gunning and is the fact that you can't identify the threats beforehand. Like, I think if you have a wider view of a battlefield and you can see like an enemy team lined up against a wall, like in cover, the likelihood of you leaving cover, leaving safety is less. So you might stay and hold more. You might not be so quick to just run around in circles and try to dodge bullets. And I think that ultimately is what leads to players not working together, is being unable or incapable of identifying threats before the threat kills you. So it feels like you're making the best choices you can, moment to moment choices, going from this cover to that cover, moving from this building to that building.
So,
but then,
wait, I just want to ask there. So would you want more view range or less? Is what you're saying?
More.
Oh yes,
I agree.
Yes. Thank you.
With the big disclaimer there that that's not an easy technical challenge to overcome.
Nor is that a silver bullet in and of itself.
Yes, I thought you were against that, man. I'm completely for that. That's
10 meter range. 10 meter range. That's it. That's all you got.
Yep, I think among all of the organized groups of players that are working together in squads, I think all of them would unanimously agree that the most important piece of equipment for that squad is binoculars.
Yes,
Just
yes,
being able to
completely.
see what you're doing before you do it is the single most important thing that I think for general frontline combat it's lacking.
You are completely correct there. I can't even agree more with you.
Other people have commented that it's the lack of communication systems, callouts, things like that. The fact that we still have a very, very, very bare bones squad system that has a lot to be desired. That absolutely has part of it to do in terms of communication and organization and frontline kind of working with others and various systems as well. And so when I say comprehensive, I really do mean comprehensive, but narrowing it down in terms of just infantry play alone, moment to moment, I think it's camera, I think it's movement, and I guess those are two because
I really would just want to add,
Yeah.
so is it bad if I admit that having done something bad in the past? You know, you know the.
You didn't get an answer, so take it. Disc, it's a risk.
Walk
Okay,
carefully.
I'm gonna go forward with it. I'm gonna take the risk for my fellow team players. Okay, so I did cheat a bit once to get the higher resolution range when it was still a thing. Okay, before it was
Banned. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Continue.
Okay, and I'm gonna say that for the short moment that I actually could see a lot farther than usual, yes, it was of course a huge advantage over the other players, and it wasn't fair at all, and I don't advocate that at all to cheat. But it does make the entire experience a lot better because you don't guess anymore. You don't guess where the enemy is anymore. You actually know what to do and you can adapt to it, and it's so fun compared to just being in the dark, So
yeah, absolutely. And I guess the question that we need to ask ourselves is if everybody had it, not just one person, but if everybody had that same level of visual distance, then will we see an improvement to the combat system? And my hope is yes. But the first and foremost, we have to overcome the technical challenge of why that sort of thing shouldn't be working in the first place.
Yeah.
As another example, the side note, that's another example of what KFC has stated is that how all cheating, not all cheating, but a lot of cheating kind of goes back to the devs' fault, right? Because then Disc wouldn't have been tempted to cheat that way if the devs just made a goddamn better game. But Disc, tisk, shame on you.
Shame on me.
Actually, real talk, don't do that again.
Yes, I'm not gonna do it again. I promise.
All right, because I know we're gonna get some. I get some drama from that, but regardless, Disc, for your feedback, thank you so much. That was a great question. You touched on something very important there that I couldn't actually quite pinpoint myself. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good one.
No problem.
Crazy, I know you got. You pretty much want to go now, I think, right? Because we've reached 2 hours.
Let's do one more and then yeah.
Okay. Erodes, are you there?
Aha. Hello. Hey. How are we doing?
Doing well. Why don't you direct your question towards? Because I think you had one for me, but maybe you want to direct towards KFC.
Yeah, I'll start with KFC. So let me see. I wrote it down here. So I wouldn't forget. Aha. So first off, this question is going to be, I think, far less critical than most questions tend to be on this program. A lot of people are understandably have their own opinions about the game, whether it's going well or poorly. This one is kind of like I want to understand a little bit more about the back end a little bit, as opposed to pointing and saying this is wrong, kind of thing. So two short questions for you. The first one is I am curious if you or any of the rest of the dev team keeps track of detailed statistics like how many crates of X was created, or if they were
globally.
Figure out either globally by faction
even by
or
region,
even
by
factory.
faction. Yeah.
Exactly.
Do they exist? Do the numbers exist?
Yep. At least as far as I'm aware, the last time I saw this graph was months ago, but I know that they do exist.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that answers question one. Does that include things like how much ammo is fired, how much scrap is mined, components are mined, etc.? that stuff?
Our policy with gathering statistics is that first and foremost, we have to ask ourselves a question. What is the question we want answered? So as easy or as simple as it might seem to just go, okay, well, let's just gather all the data. Let's just parse the logs. We could pull it all up, no doubt about it. But the real question is, why would we spend our time looking into exactly how many shots were fired if there's no question that we want answered? If the question is, what is the relevance of ammunition? Should we be removing it or adding it? Then that might pose a case for developing a database for tracking the amount of bullets fired. But first and foremost, our objective is to, with any statistics, is to draw the question and then come with the answer. So the one that you posed, how many crates are created, definitely did come up in the past when we were working on the logistics. So we did put in some statistics that helped us track how many crates were created, where were they going, that sort of thing. How many were reserve stockpiled, how many were not. That graph exists for that reason, to answer that question. And once that question was answered, like I said, I haven't seen the graph in months.
Mm-hmm.
So then I guess that begs the question too. This is my question then. Is there a reason why these, this database of stats have not been shared with the community?
I think we did share them at one point. They were on a dev blog somewhere. I think,
Okay, so
probably again several months ago.
Yeah. But would it be too much of an ask to go to like set up some sort of website where at the end of every war, here's the number of shots were fired, here's the number of crates of grenades were made, here's the number by faction, by region, globally, etc. Because I think that would be an amazing resource. That would also be an absolute pain to organize. I understand, but I don't know. Do you think there'd be a benefit to that?
Yeah, for sure. But I would do it like I'd probably put it onto the public API, so we don't even have to develop it.
There you go.
Just like throw it on the public API and go, hey Hayden, can you put this into war stats? Thanks. But there's the problem with that is then we have to worry about war intelligence, right? Like you can't have that live, otherwise
not
know
live.
what the
It would be like a summary at the end of the war, or maybe even like every 3 wars you can really you can only release stats from 2 wars ago or something. But just to have that, because there's a lot of at all times there's suggestions being thrown around, rightfully so, because that's how discussion is done. But just not being able to have the evidence to parse through and just kind of talking really just anecdotally, or from what small things we can gather from foxholestats.com, shout out. But just having that as a resource to help inform people's arguments would be great. Of course, people will abuse those statistics because people don't know how to read statistics. As that's just how most people don't know how to do that. But just having it would be nice, I think.
That actually leads into my next question pretty well on the subject of using that information and comparing that to anecdotal evidence gathered from the players and shared in spaces like the subreddit or FOD suggestions or here on Zero Dark PressCorps. So I guess the follow up to that is, do you guys compare statistics and anecdotal evidence that you hear from players from all those sources with the statistics that you get? As an example, I'm gonna kind of, I guess, draw attention to a meme a little bit. The response of just use APFA. I'm curious if statements like that are actually followed with statistics. Like you guys have gone through, like, oh no, they actually did use APFA, and this is our like conclusion, or wow, they really didn't, and we don't have enough data to properly balance this tool. We need a few more wars to gather. Does that question make sense?
Yep, we can pull that information, and I can think of a few instances in the past where that did come up, wanting to know exactly how many prototypes were built. For example, I think that was one of the core ones that we wanted to investigate. So we pulled a list of all the prototypes that were built and when and where, and so yeah, we can do that. But I think the comparison of statistics to anecdotal feedback is I think we weight the anecdotal feedback more than the statistics. Statistics are good for disproving anecdotal feedback. I don't think it's really good for providing us context. So, like in your example, where is APFA like overused? Is it useful? We can look at the statistics to disprove that point. But whether or not APFA is powerful, we couldn't just look at the statistics, see you guys were building them, and then draw that conclusion.
Right.
There are too many other variables like the FA placement on the map and how the players are behaving in general. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, those are my two really short questions. I want to know if like how the stats, the numerical data collection, and the anecdotal side kind of weighed against each other in your guys' heads.
Yeah, those stats are really. It's good to know that the devs, whether or not they share that with us, the devs at least have it on their end, because we all know that they don't play their own game.
In seriousness, one of the questions that came up during the dev stream was somebody was complaining about the mortar half track was too strong, and that's an interesting, like, it was an interesting bit of feedback that I actually haven't been hearing a lot about from players. Believe it or not, I don't know what's going on, but I have been hearing that the mortar half track is overpowered from the stream. And what strikes me as odd about that is I can't, like, that's a difficult one to disprove, right? Like, I can't necessarily pull up the statistics for that one. What does really help me is getting video evidence of the things that you think are overpowered. Just like what about it is making it overpowered. Like a YouTube video either explaining it or with footage of what it's doing that makes it seem overpowered. That easily goes 100 times farther than literally anything else. More than the statistics, more than just some random comment on a stream. Having a video that I can just share with Mark and the rest of the team saying, hey, we need to fix this, here's the problem, is like, it just makes it a million times easier to make those changes, to get those changes pushed through. So if there is problems or feedback with anything like that, the best thing to do is make a video about it, take screenshots, point it out, and then you can literally just DM it to me. I still read all of my DMs, even if I don't necessarily respond to all of them, and that really does give me the best insight. I want to just to drive that point home further. One of the examples, somebody complained that the silver hand went faster than the light, the Kreneska. Thank you, the Kreneska. And seeing the video footage of that really caused us to like do a double take and go, oh wait, maybe this is too fast. And we went with the whole team, well, 2 or 3 of us went in and actually tested it, and then we took a look at the numbers, and we in the end decided not to change it, but in for the half tracks we did change it, and all of that was started by somebody making a video and being like, hey, the half tracks go too slow, here's why, and then they just compared it, and that one now they go, I think, like 30 or 40% faster off road. So that's the avenue. That's how you get balance changes through.
Okay, Rhodes, thank you so much. Those are really good questions. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Have a good one.
Yep, you too.
KFC, you said that was your last one?
That's my last one. I gotta get off.
All right. Well, either way, thanks for staying for 2+ hours. Duly appreciate it.
No, thanks again for hosting these. I really appreciate you guys you putting this together, because this is such an amazing platform for you guys to ask questions, and it's a place where I can actually respond with one at a time, instead of like when I make a single post on FOD and then I get spammed by 30 pings.
Oh, isn't
it's good. It's a really great forum.
Okay, yeah, no problem. And I hope you can stop by some of the other. I think there are other podcasts as well. I think you joined was it the Meme Hole Saltcast or something like that?
Yep, I did do one of those.
That was a good one. And I think there's the 82DK one as well. I hope you reach out to some of these other ones as well, because there's so many other great people in the community doing all sorts of stuff up and down all the time. So
yeah, just ask. Send me DMs, guys. If you do your own podcast and you're looking for people, I will typically do them if I see that you've been doing them for consistently, like PressCorps does, like Memehole does. Just give me a DM. I'm happy to pop on.
All right, KFC, have a good one while I close up here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, apologies to the other people in the call. We can never get to the end of the call queue. Apologies to Foxy. Apologies to J-Rate. Apologies to Sammy. Apologies to Digby Tavern Warther of the ZF group, because I know you have all sorts of written questions that KFC doesn't have time to answer. Just as a usual disclaimer that we do open up the queue at the start of the show, right on the dot, maybe a little bit after when I forget. But regardless, it's just first come, first serve. So please stop by again. We'd love to get your questions in next time as well. So to everyone else, thank you. Good night. Have a good one. Good night. Good fight.
The PressCorps is a non-profit creative collective of artists, reporters, and players from the MMO video game Foxhole by Clapfoot. Our mission is to engross our audience in and amplify the stories of this unique war ecosystem. The PressCorps was founded in early 2018 by former PlanetSide 2 Radio Free Araxis host, Captain-in-Arms. It is a separate community entity and is in no way representative of Clapfoot. For more info, visit the PressCorps Discord through the link below.